And welcome to Let Them Talk. I'm Paul DiRienzo.
And I'm Miss Joan Marie Musi.
And our guest, Alexander Penley, an international attorney and activist who is joining us from what you see behind us, and that is the Occupy Wall Street action down at Zuccotti Park, Liberty Park, really, I guess, Liberty Square.
And if you haven't been, you've got to go down there.
Absolutely. We're here to tell you to go down there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the whole thing, the whole purpose of this show. And pretty much every show we're going to be doing, unless something else comes up that's so pressing, but for a while we're going to be in support the people mode, and our show is dedicated to folks going down to Zuccotti Park and participating in Occupy Wall Street. Joni and I have been there almost pretty much every day since the beginning.
This afternoon.
Sometimes through rain, sleet,
well, I got wet
snow.
4 times this week.
Right.
So.
We got rained on. Well, I didn't get maced. Close to being maced.
And don't forget about yesterday, the press conference, which is where we met Alexander.
Right, we met Alexander at the press conference on the steps of City
Hall. Because he gave a
Hall.
wonderful presentation there.
Very moving presentation. And so, Alexander, welcome. And tell us what we should know about Occupy Wall Street. What folks who've been following this, maybe reading the papers.
And from a legal perspective, are you going to get in trouble if you go down there? You know, things that people want to know that are considering going.
Sure. I mean, basically, this is it. That going down there at the park itself, there have been a couple of, I would say, false arrests due to, some cop will say it's fine to write with sidewalk chalk on the sidewalk. Some will say that's not okay. So there have been some that sort of thing, but not many. But in general at the park, there's been the police have been pretty well bored because they're sitting there all day long.
They're just staring at the crowd, right?
But basically, it hasn't been as heavy or negative from them as maybe all of you have seen on some of the
bridge,
on the bridge where I actually was speaking to a photographer who took a lot of the photos of the front of the bridge. That basically the police guided people onto the bridge, is my understanding. And
I heard that too. Yeah.
Basically, one thing that's interesting on that was the New York Times had an article online which said basically people were led onto the bridge.
Right.
And within a couple of hours, their bureau chief who works with the police to their take on things or whatever, edited it. So it was basically became something where they were keeping the peace. And basically what we see now, like overall from the police, as I was saying, at the park they've been fairly peaceful, no problems. But for example, we've all probably seen the video of Anthony Baloney, who one thing as a lawyer, I found a couple of things I found
that's
interesting about that.
white-shirted policeman that sprayed people in the face.
Yes,
with,
one woman directly in the face, and what I found interesting about that was twofold. First of all, if you look at the entire video, he's spraying the street with it. He's just spraying it out like, like air freshener or whatever. And then he goes up to this woman. Now,
very 70s, by the way. I hadn't seen that. They used to do stuff like that when I was a college kid and younger.
Okay.
And use mace extensively.
Growing up here at Tompkins Square Park in the 80s as well, there was a lot of violence, but not as much with the pepper spray and that sort of thing.
It was a different type of rally. I mean, different types of demonstration, in the middle of the Vietnam War when people are dying and there's been Kent State and all these things happening, the level of rage is very high. At this protest, I see anger, but not that sort of rage. What you really see here with folks protesting is a creative desire.
Absolutely. I mean, even if you look at all the videos from that time, there was no, so I'm going to punch a cop in the face sort of thing. Yeah. There was no violent response. Like the one
more incredulous. Like we came here to peacefully protest, and you're macing us.
And like the one woman who was behind barricades, where also that video got out, where basically she said, shame on you, shame, 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 and so go and attack her. And the thing is, which is interesting, from the white-shirted officer of Anthony Bologna, again, he slunk back into the crowd after he used that. Now, there's two things that are very, well, I did criminal defense, including death penalty defense, for years. And I'm sorry, but basically, if it was my client and just a person, and somebody just getting out of the way after that, it's like, come on. Why is he getting out of the way? If he needs to do that to effectuate an arrest, which is the only reason you were ever supposed to do that, he slunk back into the crowd? I'm sorry, but
Right,
really?
you should have followed through if it was
Well,
that
the
big
point
of a-
is that basically he was getting his jollies off. I mean, he's already, he's already got a suit going from the Republican National Convention.
Oh,
And
dear.
then when Kelly came out, the head of the police in New York, and basically said that was reasonable, that was fine, he had no reason to do that. And when he did, he said to New York City, it's fine
Right.
to pepper spray people for no reason. Thanks, and it gets my seal of approval. And basically, both of them need to resign. I mean,
Oh, that's what I was
minimally.
just going to
But-
ask you, because yesterday at the press conference, John Penley called for Kelly's resignation, and I wondered if you agreed with that.
100%. I would say, even if you want to look at it from, again, a legal perspective, but if I were the police, the lawyer for the police, I would have cringed when Kelly said that, because basically, obviously, they have a right to a lawsuit. The woman who was pepper sprayed, she'll win. There isn't really much of a defense. It's 2011. Enough people have cameras
Right, there's plenty of evidence.
in the crowd.
Right.
And when Kelly said that, he just added on a lot of damages, basically. So if I were concerned about the city's liability, our broke city, we're too busy giving money to the Mets and the Yankees to actually have much left. And meanwhile, he's going to stand up and say, can we up the ante a little bit? Can we lose some more? Why? And even from a fiscal perspective, even to take the human rights out of it for a second, Kelly has to step down, because we can't have, he is a liability when he speaks. Because I assure you that the legal department, the city legal department, did not say, hey, I have a good idea for you. Why don't you go on television and say that it was great that somebody was randomly pepper sprayed?
By the way, our phone number is on the screen, 212-757-1538. So we'll take your calls. Alexander Penley is an attorney, international attorney, experienced lawyer, who's a supporter and been active with the protests down at Occupy Wall Street.
And let us know if you've been down there.
Yeah, we want to know your experiences, if you've been there, if you're listening to this broadcast. And we're showing the live feed behind us, which is actually from Zuccotti Park. That's live from the park. And I guess we want to give folks a webpage to go to, livestream.com/global revolution.
Right, you can get this on your computer.
Yes, you can watch it all night. It's usually
Pretty much 24/7.
Yeah, 24/7.
Now that's how I saw what happened on the Brooklyn Bridge. I
There
was watching it on the live
22,000
feed.
people watching it on the stream.
That's right.
And right now, I can see, if you look carefully, well, it's behind me, but there's a number that says about 4,500 people are watching it right now.
Plus everybody who's watching on TV.
Right, plus all of us who are watching on TV. So imagine all those tens of thousands of people now who are watching this. It's pretty amazing. And
well, it's like a
media?
village down there.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. I said to somebody, it's sort of like a rainbow gathering concentrated into one little city park, because there's a drum circle, they have a newspaper.
Or a punk picnic.
Yeah.
Right, I like that.
It's a gathering type of thing.
Well, let's talk about the media, because people have not waited. The action has gotten media attention for sure, but folks have not been waiting for the media.
Besides the live feed,
the live feed has been happening.
There's a newspaper.
People have been using all the social medias, Facebook and YouTube and all that, and their
There's
own
actually
sites.
a
There's a
printed
newspaper.
newspaper.
Here's a newspaper that was published called the
Occupied
Wall
Street.
Street Journal. It's by the folks from Indie Media who are doing that. Very good. And
Brad Will Presente. Sorry.
Brad Will Presente. There you go.
Right, thank you.
We
Yeah,
were friends with Brad Will.
we did
and
a
had
lot of shows about
him.
him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Viewers
And
are
so folks
familiar
have been
with Brad.
waiting for the, I mean, we accept the other media. MSNBC was there yesterday, NBC, Daily News, everybody's covering it to certain degrees, but
I was interviewed by Le Figaro yesterday as well, for example.
Right,
Yeah, there's a lot of press there now.
but nobody was
absolutely.
waiting for that, right?
No,
Nobody
no,
was
it's
waiting
been
for,
very-
nobody's saying we're going to try and get their opinions. We'll wait for them to cover us.
It's a very organic movement. I mean, I think that's one of the wonderful things, because we're all older here, and basically, I don't know that any of us has seen something like this. In my life, I haven't.
We depended on them. Like yesterday's press conference was more old school. Having a press conference,
Right.
expecting the media to come. I think if we had had that press conference without all this people's media supporting it, we might have had 2 reporters out there. But
Oh, I don't.
Although, no, on the
that's not
17th
true.
we had things. I think the one really important thing to notice about this is how much people, not local media, but locals in U.S. media, is ignoring this. I was interviewed by Reuters a couple of weeks ago, and I have a client in Australia, and for example, who sent me an article. Right. I looked up my name in Occupy Wall Street, and I saw New Zealand's reporting, da-da-da. I've been interviewed by, I mean, I was on CNBC last night, but in general, I've been interviewed by The Guardian. I've been interviewed by Le Figaro, which is a French paper, and basically all over the world, they seem to be covering it more. And the only thing that happened to have people down here, and I don't mean, local media, but I mean the media outlets cover this, was the brutality from 2 weeks ago on Saturday.
700
Since then,
plus.
people have showed up.
And
basically.
today, the Daily News opinion page was actually defending the police and attacking the protesters. Even though I have to say, the Daily News has some good coverage, their opinion piece was very pro-police, and the New York Times very pro-police. New York Post, no surprise there.
New York Times
pro-
actually potentially been the
authorities
worst,
pro-Wall
which
Street.
is shocking. Actually.
Now it's my understanding that, and I haven't seen the article, but I saw a sign saying that Chase Manhattan Bank has actually given $4.5 million.
J.P. Morgan gave
Morgan?
$4.6 million.
$4.6 million
Directly to the
To the
police.
police, is it like a donation to the
Yes.
police
for the
department?
purpose of this paying for all.
Well, they're not going to say for the purpose of, but it's interesting timing, shall
I've
we
never
say.
heard of such a thing. The idea of giving money, a private corporation giving cash.
It should be illegal. I mean,
to the
plain and
police
simple.
to pay them. I mean, that reminds me of like the labor union struggles of the 19th century, of the Pinkertons being hired, and the whole Homestead steel strike, where basically they hired the police to be.
Or shall we say,
Gangsters.
what is a right-wing dictatorship which fosters government and business ties?
Right.
What is that the definition of in the dictionary? Do you guys know?
No.
Fascism.
There.
And
There's our
that's the
number. It's on the
definition.
screen. We're looking for your calls, 212-757-1538. There's a slight delay, so if you call, of course, don't keep your TV
Right, you have to
turned
turn
down
your TV
and
down,
listen
right.
to your telephone. So it's easier to have this conversation. So very interesting. So let's take it from there. But what about the demands? I saw a great sign the other day. Our demand is, and then it flipped over, and the other side it said demand.
Well, also that thing you showed me that the comedian did, and it was once we win, we'll have a consensus about what our demand is going to be, or something.
Yeah, right.
that's fine.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, but
Why the? Why
there
the
are some
reticence
demands,
for-
though.
right.
I mean,
Why has the demand thing become such an issue?
because when it was set up, there's a lot of social media that set it up. Some people calling themselves anonymous helped to set it up.
We had Barrett Brown on last week. But
Okay, and I actually I do some legal representation for people who are falsely named to be anonymous, and basically some of that was saying we will have one demand. I think there is three things that I think we can all agree with, however, and I've said that to the media when they've said, what are your
is the
demands?
demand,
I said, well, okay, forgive all mortgage debt, forgive student loans,
right.
and change the law that of corporate personhood, because corporations aren't a person; they have no right to free speech. And what is this? What is this Citizens
seen that a lot
United case?
That a lot of
stuff.
people bring that up about corporations are not people. Well, how is
Absolutely.
that? What's that doing to the economy? I mean, folks are folks out there because they're motivated by what's happening in the economy today, or is it a larger? Is it the war? Is it the direction of the country? And where is the Democrats? Where is Obama and the rest of them been on this?
Well, I mean, Obama's new job plan, for example, includes 3 free trade agreements, and we all know what NAFTA did. And basically, it's he wants to connect us with basically, for example, Colombia, which is basically a terrorist government.
Yeah.
It's mob run. We have Panama, which is the biggest money launderer in the world, and then we have Korea that has slave Chinese people working there. And so the idea, you couldn't in your worst nightmare actually come up with
the
3
worst
countries
idea.
together that could be possibly ones you really don't want to deal with than Colombia, Panama, and Korea. But that's his new job program is what? Ship them overseas. That helps us.
I think we got a call. You're on the air.
Good evening, everyone.
Oh, let's try and
Hello?
I'm gonna try and
Hello,
turn
can you
your
hear me?
speaker up. We're gonna turn our mics down. Go ahead.
I just have a quick question for you guys.
Speak up, please. I can't really hear you.
All right, can you hear me now?
Go ahead. Hello? Hello?
Can you hear me?
No, we lost them. I'm sorry for that. Well, try again. We want to take a call from you guys. So our number is there on the screen, 212-757-1538. Remember, there's an 8-second delay. So don't listen to the TV.
Right, you have to turn your
Listen
TV
to the
down.
phone. Turn your TV down.
But
all
also
right?
you have to speak up really loud because we're hearing you very faintly. So.
Okay. We'll try it again. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Hello?
Hello?
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Okay, I could barely hear you, but I guess you can hear me, right?
Now we're doing good. Yeah.
All right. My quick question is, what I'm seeing here, and I do have to admit that I haven't been paying too much attention to the protest. But what the stuff that I have been seeing is it just seems like it's really scattered and misguided. I'm wondering what exactly is the focus? It seems like one day they were occupying Wall Street, then they had to run in with the police, then they were at the police stations protesting the police. They seem to just be all over the place, scattered. And then the icing on the cake was the other day, a few of them putting on zombie makeup. I'm just saying to myself, where is this going? What are they saying? I haven't really heard what their message is, or really saw them focusing on one thing at a time. You get what I'm saying? And I'll take my call off the air.
So
Thank
you
you.
want to know the thread that's tying all this together.
I'm going to have to turn it down a little bit.
Okay, and let Alexander answer.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Alexander.
Yeah, basically, around the country, there is once a year a zombie march thing. So, of course, the media is going to take photos of that. I don't disagree with them being there. That's fine. I mean, people are doing what they're doing. And, they thought it was cool to dress up like zombies. Do they represent anything outside of the media wanting pictures of zombies who look more interesting than protesters? Yes. If I owned a paper, I would think, okay, zombies, cool. Why not? And basically, now when you're talking about the run-in with the police, that was a police riot. The police attacked people. People were marching. They were marching to show what they had to say. Most of the police, even during that time, were fairly reasonable. And it was just a march up to Union Square, very common. As, New Yorker, I can tell you that I've seen a million of them. I've been in a few hundred of them. And basically, it's normal. And the police just chose to go crazy. Or maybe they're a bit off and they need, professional help. But regardless, it wasn't the protesters. That was police. And as a reaction to that, people going down to One Police Plaza, the only problem with that is that did get a bit overtaken by some people who went to the front. And if people wanted to go there, it would have been better to sit down and wait until Bloomberg came and dismissed Kelly and Baloney. That did not happen. So there's a few steps short, of course. But overall, it's a rather organic movement that the people have similar demands and similar ones. So I think when you're saying it's misguided, it's really hard to say that if you're watching it on television, because what guide do you want? I mean, what are you saying? You know,
Right, you should go down and talk to the people, right?
absolutely, and try to see what their aims are. Actually,
and there is behind us, the
absolutely.
folks are there waiting for us to go down and ask them, waiting for you and waiting for the viewers to go down and
Please do.
Because people are really receptive to talking. That's one thing that
A lot of
there's
people during the week are like just having lunch there because that's where they normally have lunch, and nobody is like, okay, you know, somebody might say, hi, do you know why we're here? You know, that sort of thing, but in general,
Well,
just
and if
people,
you say hi to somebody, what are you doing here? People are very receptive to having serious political conversations.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's a really interesting aspect of what's going on
it's
down
lovely.
there.
Yeah.
Well, the website behind us is livestream.com/global revolution. Livestream.com// and then you write global revolution, and you can watch 24/7 live broadcast from Zuccotti Park and interviews and
And
see
you can
folks.
watch from anywhere in the world
Yeah,
because it's on the internet.
It's on the internet anywhere in the world, and
On the first days, we had Al Jazeera streaming. We had a French station streaming. We had a Spanish station. I don't know who is around now or not. So that's why I say we had, because I
Yeah.
do know it was there in the
That it
first
was
days.
going
I don't
on.
know now. So there's been several things, and you know,
what about the amenities? It's amazing because there's been tremendous outpouring of support that you see in a well-stocked food kitchen.
Yeah.
Many people. I was watching Jason and Justin, who were commenting on the stream. You see them at night, and they were openly saying, "We have $20,000." One of them was saying, "We wanted to burn it as a protest." I don't know if
But
that
it's
was a
better
great
to
idea.
buy food.
I know.
and,
they've been
and in
buying
the
food.
world, it's going beyond
Yeah.
just job
Yeah.
problems. It's basically a global elite that everybody wants to get rid of. Now, in Amsterdam right now, as of yesterday, there's supposed to be about 2 million people in Amsterdam. And one of my best friends lives there. The last time I was there, I was on my way home from the World Cup, and I stopped by, saw him. I said, you know, how is the global depression here? He laughed. Because he was like, it was about 2 weeks. You know, basically we can get jobs. But still, people are, and Amsterdam, believe me, Holland is not as open as you like to think just because they smoke pot. And basically, people there are PO'd at the elite, having everything, even if they have a job. It's
Let's talk
you know,
about
whatever.
what's spreading. So you're saying that there's now a Occupy Amsterdam
For example, yeah.
going on. Where,
And
where
there's
are
an
some of the other
Occupy
places?
LA, right?
Occupy Los Angeles, right?
Well, even more than that, I would say forget within the United States. Not forget the big cities, but of course they're going to do something. But there's also Occupy Portland, Maine. There's also Occupy Appleton, Wisconsin. There's also Occupy Enid, Oklahoma.
Wow.
Places with not a lot of people, and people are just
They're
globally
gathering.
sick of it,
And
and
it's
within
all-
our country they're sick of it too.
Well, wouldn't you say within the United States anyway, the real impetus for this movement almost I would say it came from Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin. You know.
I think Madison, Wisconsin
big
gave us
play.
a possibility,
Yeah.
because as a 40-year-old, and they're older than I am, and at the same, you know, when we were younger in New York, you couldn't walk 2 blocks without seeing a protest about something. Whether you agreed with it or not, it was there. And for 20 years, you could walk around for a week in New York and not see a darn thing as far as that. And this is actually really refreshing. And most of the people involved in it aren't our age.
Right.
They're kids who maybe been on nothing before.
Well, I remember the drama when Scott Walker attempted to shut down the unions and eliminate collective bargaining and to destroy
Absolutely.
the teachers union
Absolutely.
in Wisconsin, and thousands of people took over the state capitol,
They
which is a
occupied the
giant
state
square.
capitol
Absolutely.
A
building,
giant
yeah.
square with also a long history of protest there, but this time taking it to a level I hadn't seen in decades.
I think part of it is this too, because we've always had working class problems where people aren't being paid enough. Da, 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 da. We're getting to a level where you can have a doctorate degree, you can have a master's degree, you can have everything and not be employed because there's no jobs
Right.
if you're digging for them. It's just, you know, in New York you could always kick the door until it opened, and now you
And
just
yet
get a
there's-
sore foot.
Yet it's not like there's stuff to be done. I mean, the country is
Yeah.
begging and crying out for people to help because there is suffering and there is poverty and there is need everywhere. There's need in the Bronx right here, and I don't understand why we don't have a civilian conservation corps. I don't understand why
Absolutely.
we don't have artists like they did in the Federal Theater Project in the 30s. There's so many things that could be done right now to take all these people who are underemployed or unemployed, you know, PhDs and lawyers and doctors who are doing things that are really a waste of their talents that could be doing great and wonderful things. Why are we not doing that? Because of the greed of Wall Street? Because, well, one thing they learned from the Depression, you know, 75 years ago was we're not going to empower people to become a movement in this country again. Where is the rich, who runs this country?
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing. Like I saw a political cartoon last week, I think it was, and it was Chinese people sitting around their dinner table, like in China, saying, you know, eat everything. There's people starving in America.
Oh, I saw that too.
And, you know, I giggled, but it's true. I mean, we are in a bad state.
Yet the 1%, who are these 1% we're talking about? We got a minute and a half, 2 minutes here. Who are the 1%? One of the slogans, we are the 1%.
No,
we are the
99%.
We are the 99%. They are the 1%.
You misspoke there, yeah.
Well, it's sort of cool because we are the 1% in the sense we're the protesters, but like, hopefully we'll be the 99%. But we're talking about the economy. The 99% of the economy is controlled by 1% of Americans. What does that mean in reality?
Well, I mean, I think that for a long time people have been confused by voting, for example, because there's one fool or the other. And Emma Goldman said over 100 years ago, when the suffragettes were fighting for women's right to vote, then who are you going to vote for? I don't want that. You guys are silly. You're wasting your time. And at this point, I think it's obvious. I mean, I was on CNBC last night, and, you know, I was asked a question by the conservative host who, you know, said, well, okay, you're not for Obama, so I suppose you might be for one of these Republicans coming up. And I'm not, no. We need somebody who's going to take our hijacked democracy back to democracy. And I'm sorry, but, you know, the biggest war hawk in history of Obama isn't doing it. The guy who gives free money to the banks gives, you know, free money to the car, you know, the car companies, although admittedly the working people for the car companies, I'm glad they have jobs, so no offense there.
But then you have Bank of America, which is starting this whole movement of charging people to use their, you know, $5 a month.
Who owns Bank of America?
You know, to use
the Federal Reserve.
Their cards. And interesting enough, and so that now what used to be a free service is going to bring billions because what? The government said that, oh, banks are making too much money off of credit cards, we're going to regulate them. So what do the banks do? They turn around and increase their fees.
Absolutely.
For debit cards, which
if
is
I can
what
make a
most
plug for
people
myself at
use.
this point.
Make your plug, yeah, a minute.
My name is Alexander Penley. I'm with Penley Global Law. You can find me at penleygloballaw.com if you need a good lawyer. 917-582-8172. I also will be going down to D.C. Tomorrow, and on the 6th there will be a march of about 1 million people. And so if you're going to D.C., write 917-582-8172 on your arm because I'm licensed in D.C. and I'm going to be there.
All right, so we'll see you
All right,
next
see you
week.
down at Wall
More.
Street.
See you down at Wall Street.